What's good, y'all? Welcome to the House Echo. Today, we're locked in on Shogun. So, Shogun just completed its 10-episode run on FX. The show is a reboot of the 1980 limited series directed by Jerry London, which is based on the original novel written by James Clavell. I haven't watched the original show or read the book, and I'm probably not gonna, but I'm here to talk about the new show, which I think was absolutely stunning. So, my favorite shows of the past 5 years have all gone off the air. I feel like when it comes to shows, I'm definitely more drawn to original concepts. Shows like The Bear, Atlanta, Snowfall, Succession, Severance. All of these shows I feel like had something new to say with their production, and that's pretty rare nowadays. Everything's an adaptation or a reboot or based off an existing IP or a spin-off. You know how it is. Shogun, unfortunately, it does fall into that category, but I feel like it has something completely original and new to say with its production, which I really appreciated as somebody who wants to study this and go into it. Shogun just completely pushes the boundaries of what a film production can be. It's shot primarily on location in Japan with a primarily Japanese cast and an international cast and crew. It's a display of honor in every aspect of its production, really. From the writers to the extras, every member of this production is committed to telling a story that doesn't try to change or deny history, but instead honors it. I'm only going to cover what I saw in the pilot, but I can already tell that this show is going to leave a huge impact on television, even though it's just a limited series. So Shogun is the story of a power struggle between 5 warlords ruling over different factions in Japan. We follow Toranaga, Ishido, Kiyama, Ono, and Sugiyama. The story mainly follows Yoshi Toranaga, who's played expertly by Hiroyuki Sanada. He plays the Lord of Edo, one of the big factions in Japan. So Toranaga has been summoned by the Council of 5 Regions to Osaka for reasons I'm not going to spoil. So at the same time, an English Protestant crew of sailors led by John Blackthorne find their way to Japan after being lost at sea for a number of months. They've been looking for the island on the order of their queen, and from here the story follows the power struggle of Toranaga being ousted within Japan's Council of Regions, and Blackthorne's struggle of seeking aid against the Catholic empires of Spain and Portugal. It's such a sick story, and I honestly don't want to get into too much of the story because everybody deserves to see this show unfold for themselves. The conflict of religious power and tradition versus the power of self-reliance and honor is something the actors get to unravel in such a personal and intimate way. It's so well done that their performance creates an environment where the audience gets to really feel like they're part of the entire production, which is something a lot of shows really fail at doing, and I feel like is an important part of media that people don't really get nowadays. I really recommend going and watching the Making of Shogun YouTube series. The companion YouTube series is just as essential a watch as the show itself. Since I don't want to get too deep into the story, I wanted to cover other aspects a bit more. The acting choices, production design, and cinematography. The acting in the show is phenomenal. The main cast and the extras all bring so much aura that you can recognize was built from extensive and intentional research into the time period. Anna Sawai just did an awesome job on Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, so it's really great to see her get some shine here. Watching her scenes with Hiroyuki Sanada were really interesting. You can tell that they both have huge parts to play in the story. The other 4 regions also all seem like really interesting characters from jump. But my favorite character from the pilot was Yabushige, the lieutenant to Lord Toranaga that Tadanobu Asano plays. He plays him really well with a lot of complexity, and his character only gets more interesting as the show goes on. I also really like Hiromatsu, the old advisor to Toranaga played by Tokuma Nishioka. Even the extras were on point, man. I feel like some of them were acting even harder than the main cast when they got their moment to shine. The Making of Shogun companion series interviews the actors, designers, and cultural specialists working on the show. All of them work to authentically capture the truth and the beauty of the time. With Japanese historians and cultural experts advising them, the actors were able to bring in extra confidence to fully immerse themselves in the roles. They learned the gestures, specific movements, and customs that must have taken so much work to bring to screen. They literally had a boot camp where both the men and the women of the cast had to learn and train in the customs of this period. That's crazy dedication that you have to respect. I don't think it'd be possible to do in typical Hollywood television, so real credit goes to FX for investing in a Japanese production with local actors and crew. I feel like period pieces are hard for any actor, but especially for an actor who has to play the role of the foreigner in the period. So I want to shout out Cosmo Jarvis and all the non-Japanese actors in Shogun. Jarvis plays Blackthorn with so much energy, even though he's playing a guy who's constantly humiliated and has to find the power in being powerless. Respect to him and the non-Japanese cast and crew for filling in the supplementary roles in order to support the Japanese cast and crew and telling a story that really honors the history of their culture. The actors would not be able to give such a performance without the production designers on the show going above and beyond expectations. Every costume, every prop, the hair, the makeup are all stunning. Even for the grimier parts of the show, you gotta appreciate the effort getting to that level of authenticity. Costume designer Carlos Rosario talked about his process for creating costumes in the third episode of the Making a Shogun series. From the nobility to the peasant class, they made sure to have different hues and patterns for the different locations. The performances of the actors would be nothing without the production designers working just as hard. The cinematography of this show is beyond epic. It would be really easy to shoot a show like this using mostly CGI and to neglect the sets and favor post-production work over cultivating an environment like this on set. Shogun instead goes all out, investing in practical sets and intentional lighting and cinematography. Shogun shoots on the Arri Alexa LF and the Arri Alexa Mini LF, as well as occasionally using a Sony Venice. They likely use the Alexa LF as their main unit for interiors and on-set shots, and the Mini LF for on-location exteriors and mobile shots. For lenses, they use the Hawk V-Lite anamorphics and the Vantage 1 spherical primes. A lot of productions choose between anamorphic and spherical lenses. Both provide different looks and have pros and cons for shooting. I think it's really cool that Shogun utilizes the benefits of both. The lens choice really aids to the entire narrative. The anamorphics are able to capture the entirety of the sets they built and the cast within them. It's really apparent, especially in the interior scenes. The anamorphics create a really cool distortion at the sides of the frame. It brings real scale to the interior sets. It also provides for an extra dramatic effect added to the subject of the frame, drawing even more focus to them than a spherical lens would. One of my favorite shots in the show is Toranaga's introduction, when his son brings him the hawk. It's shot on a spherical lens, which eliminates the distortion and creates a kind of peace for Toranaga before he's cast into the den of his enemies. The contrast is so clear. When he's faced with challenges on the council, they switch back to anamorphics. The distortion is like a visual representation of the tension present throughout the scene. It's a really cool trick that they use multiple times throughout the show to communicate peace and tension. The spherical lenses are used rarely, but when they are, it's noticeable, and the difference in choices is appreciated. I could always be wrong about this too. The distortion isn't always as prevalent with some shots versus others. The effect gets more exaggerated as the focal length decreases and the lens gets wider. So the spherical lenses also could have just been used for CGI shots, like the shots of Abushike climbing down the cliff and their shots at sea. Anamorphics probably would have made this harder to do any type of VFX with the distortion they create, but I don't know, I'm just speculating, so my thought is probably both. I really love how they let the cinematography on the show service the story, unlike so many other looks of modern productions. Cinematographer on the show Ari Repblad says, "For Shogun, we aim to use natural light sources and enhance as needed. No split toning with warm scenes, no super slow motion to make things more epic, no unmotivated backlight, no glossy hyper blue for moonlight, no affected sources, period." The use of natural light as the primary source does so much for the authenticity of the show. It honors the seasons and tones of the period without sacrificing dramatic effect. It's some of the best cinematography for a TV show I've seen in a while, and it's impressive how they find unique ways to bring stylization to the cinematography without sacrificing the goal of honoring the time period. So let's take a look at how everything comes together. The acting, the production design, and the cinematography all create this contrast in the story between the scale and the political cunning of the 5-region council and the gritty confrontationalism of Blackthorn's journey until the two perspectives finally meet at the end of the pilot. I already mentioned how excellently Jarvis plays the role of a stranger in a foreign land, but the camera lends so much to his performance. The cinematography team of Christopher Ross, Sam McCurdy, Mark Laliberte, and Ari Repblad elected to use the wide anamorphics to create this wild, frantic look whenever Blackthorn's up against odds he can't comprehend or situations he's powerless to change, which is pretty much the entire episode save for a few moments apiece. That same effect is present during a lot of Toranaga shots. This ties them together through the same visual language and makes their differences just as clear. Toranaga's introduction is long and drawn out, done with lots of tripod shots, dolly shots, and intentional pans and tilts. The tension is there, but it comes from the stillness and aura of the production design, showing the years of tradition coming in conflict with one another. Blackthorn shots, on the other hand, are frenetic, done in a handheld shaky cam POV style. The distortion adds a chaos to the whole thing that keeps us engaged with his story. This was one of the first things I noticed watching the pilot, and it was really cool to read the cinematographer's thoughts on this. We all wanted the audience to feel a visceral first-person perspective of Blackthorn's plight, in juxtaposition with the grandeur of the lives of Toranaga and the other warlords in their castles. So when we see the two finally meet at the end of the pilot, the tension of the entire episode is all demonstrated in one scene. I could talk about this show all day, man, but I think I'm gonna let it speak for itself from here. As of now, all 10 episodes of Shogun are available to stream on Hulu, so please go check that out. There are so many unexpected twists and turns, and it only gets better from the pilot. Shogun is definitely like that. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed and want to see more like it, then leave a like and a comment below. I plan on doing a lot more videos like this and also trying a couple ideas outside of the box, but mainly like cinematography breakdowns, production breakdowns, just how productions occurred and what went into them, what might have gone into them, the people who worked on them. I feel like it's important to cover that stuff because the ins and outs of production gets looked over when it comes to film and TV. People only just kind of see the actors and the directors and don't really realize what goes into a film, because nowadays those people are getting overlooked and underpaid. So we should definitely give them a little bit more credit, and that's what I hope this channel can do. Let me know what shows or movies left an echo with you and what you'd like to see covered. I feel like I'm not an authority to speak on stuff like this if I'm not actively trying to practice it myself and research it myself and study and improve on it myself. I plan to be great at this one day. I plan on having my own shows and movies that people can break down themselves. So that's my goal, and we're working towards that now. With that being said, stay tuned for a little teaser of something we have cooking up in collaboration with Vista and NOVO Productions. They're both excellent. Please go check out their work. All of that will be linked in the description. Thank you so much to Josh for making this music. This beat was amazing, and I couldn't have done the video without you. Links to Josh's music will be in the description. I know y'all love that track. Please stay tuned for a little teaser for a project we have coming called Hope Dealer.